Yes, if you have folks that are inclined to think Florida is a good place, our message to them is we are not a sanctuary state, and it's better to be able to go to a sanctuary jurisdiction. And yes, we will help facilitate that transport for you to be able to go to greener pastures.
The border crisis in the United States is a very real issue. Border state governors have been raising the red flags about this. They've been screaming about this. They've been yelling about this, saying, do something. Nearly 2 million interactions border services agencies have had in this year alone. 2 million interactions with illegal immigrants. Now, there may be some do-overs. Some people try, get kicked out, come back. But it doesn't take away from the fact that the reality, they can't manage it. I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Brian Lilly and Jamil Javani. Jamil, this is a clear, an obvious issue, security issue, drug issue, human trafficking issue that the border states are having. But what brought this so much into focus this week is when the governor of Texas and the governor of Florida decided to ship these illegal immigrants to states and cities that have declared themselves sanctuary cities, usually Democrat-run cities. And now all of a sudden, everybody's paying attention when a bus full of migrants ends up in Martha's Vineyard. What happened?
Well, this is the thing. Like, look, these are real people, the migrants, and it's important we don't lose sight of that. But the reality is that US politicians, particularly Democrats, have been signaling to people to enter the country illegally by instituting these sanctuary city policies. They're incentivizing people coming into the country illegally and saying, you come to our cities and you'll have equal rights. In New York City, they even voted in favor, the city council did, of a proposal to let illegal immigrants vote. So they are incentivizing people to come into the border, knowing that that's mostly going to affect other parts of the country, red states like Texas, like Florida. So those governors are right to say, well, if you're going to incentivize people to come into the country, then maybe you should take care of them.
And all those people in D.C. and New York were beating their chests when Trump was president, saying they were so proud to be sanctuary jurisdictions, saying how bad it was to have a secure border. The minute even a small fraction of what those border towns deal with every day is brought to their front door, they all of a sudden go berserk, and they're so upset that this is happening. And it just shows you, their virtue signaling is a fraud, okay?
You should worry about their health care, where they're going to get jobs, where they're going to get schooling, how their kids are going to be healthy. And it seems to me like the people in Martha's Vineyard, for example, where Barack Obama owns a vacation home, would like to virtue signal and say, well, we welcome everybody, legal or illegal, but they don't want to foot the bill. They don't want to deal with the consequences of incentivizing people to come into the country illegally.
So our message is, we're not a sanctuary state. We don't have benefits or any of that. There are some sanctuary jurisdictions, and that would be better. Now, what would be the best is for Biden to do his damn job and secure the border.
So this was the ultimate chess move, I think, from Governor Ron DeSantis and Governor Abbott in Texas. It was a move to say, look, if you're going to send this signal to people to come into our country, you have to have a plan. Mm-hmm. Don't put that on us. And I think it's exposing the fact that Democrats don't actually like dealing with their own policies.
Brian, it's been referred to as a brilliant jujitsu move on one side by the governors. And then on the other side, it's been said that they are anti-Christian. They are making it's a political stunt. I'd agree with that. Certainly, it's a political stunt.
Republican governors interfering in that process and using migrants as political pawns is shameful, is reckless, and just plain wrong. The fact that Fox News and not the Department of Homeland Security, the city or local NGOs were alerted about a plan to leave migrants, including children, on the side of a busy DC street makes clear that this is just a cruel, premeditated political stunt.
But it's them trying to drive the point home to Washington, to the vice president, who supposedly their borders are, who recently, just a few days ago, said the border is secure, when at the meantime, you can see people physically jumping whatever wall, and migrants have died trying to get across. They have a fentanyl issue. They have overdose issues. They have human trafficking issues. It's a long list. So what, aside from this being the obvious, yes, it's a political move. Yes, these are real humans. But is this now finally going to put it on the radar for Washington?
Well, I hope so. And I hope it puts it in a way that goes beyond just slogans. But, the chances of that might be slim to none. Governor Gavin Newsom calling it, says it isn't clever, it's cruel. And he's asking the Department of Justice begin an immediate investigation into these inhumane efforts to use kids as political pawns. Okay, so a little while ago, Donald Trump was in, everyone was screaming about people being put in cages. And they weren't cages, they were the fenced in areas, that holding cells essentially for people who had broken the law while they were being processed. Those same cells existed under under Barack Obama. It wasn't a problem. They still exist 2 years later under Joe Biden. Apparently, it's not a problem, but it was a problem when Donald Trump did it.
They are supporting policies that are just frankly indefensible. It is not defensible for a superpower to not have any control over the territory of its country, over the borders of its country.
Now you've got people outraged that they're sending them to Martha's Vineyard. What? Why is it bad that they're being sent to Martha's Vineyard? This is a place most of us would want to go. It's a beautiful spot. It's a gorgeous area. And look, you keep voting for this? Well, here you go. Here's the problem. You help deal with it. Most Americans, I'm betting, would be fine with legal immigration. This is people just literally streaming across the border, no checks, no balances, no security checks. And you're right, there's a lot of security issues that go along with this. We know there's human trafficking on the southern US border. There's human trafficking between the United States and Canada. And to Jamil's point about incentivizing this, we know from our own experience in Canada that when you send out these signals, people respond. We have Roxham Road because of Justin Trudeau's comments. And that is backed up, not by just us claiming it, but by internal government documents where the immigration department said, we're getting all kinds of, in embassies, we're saying we're getting all kinds of calls about this tweet the prime minister put out. People want to go, and they just started running across Roxham Road. So yeah, if it happens on a small scale here, you're going to bet it's going to happen on a bigger scale down there. And now Governor DeSantis, Governor Abbott are saying, you have to be part of the solution to the problem you've helped create.
Jamil, the very important midterms are just a few short weeks away, and immigration and the border crisis plays very high. It's up there with the cost of inflation in the United States for voters at this stage. But you hear from these Democrat-run cities and Democrat-run states where the buses are coming and dropping them off. City of Chicago, for example, the mayor there is talking about how evil this is and how anti-Christian they are. But that very same mayor, who has a massive violence issue, gun violence is rampant, property damage is rampant. They're talking about defunding the police. They scream about these things. That very same mayor is now shipping those illegal immigrants to smaller communities in the state of Illinois. So it's, this sort of hypocrisy, I think that is extraordinarily frustrating. But even the virtue signaler who is the Justin Trudeau wannabe, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, is trying to suggest that these two, and the Florida and Texas governors, should be brought under criminal charges. It's so absurd, because at the same time, President Joe Biden's government, and under Donald Trump, it happened too. It's been widely reported. We know about these flights that come of illegal children that are coming into the United States. They're getting flown into cities, and they call them the quote ghost flights because it happened to be happening in the evening, and then they're put out into communities where they can be reunited with families. And I'm not trying to equate the two, Jamil, but what I'm trying to suggest is actions that Democrats are taking are similar. And the points that the Republican governors are trying to make is beyond just blue and red. This is a real human crisis issue. There are 55,000 what they call gotaways just in the last month. It's a massive security issue, and it's an issue for Canada as well.
Absolutely. When someone like Gavin Newsom uses the term cruelty, and the political left does this all the time, like they're the authority on what's cruel and what's compassionate and what's humane. But look at, as you said, what happens in Chicago, where they're busing illegal immigrants out of their city into other communities. Look at the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, who has been lobbying Washington, D.C. to change its border policies because there are too many illegal immigrants in New York City. I mean, if they want to be the authorities on cruelty, then they're going to have to look in the mirror on this stuff at the same time. And my biggest issue with this also is Americans, just like Canadians do, have a right to define their borders and define their border policies. That is what a democracy is. That is what a country is. If you look at who's commenting on this issue on the Democrat side, you will not see anyone in a swing state where they're trying to actually win an election in November take Joe Biden's side on this. Not in Ohio, not Pennsylvania, not Georgia, not Arizona. And the reason why is because even the majority of swing voters are not in favor of these open borders, weak law enforcement policies. So the people who will be vocal will be Chicago, California, New York City, places where they know that there's a very left-wing base that the Democrats can pander to. But if this is up to the American people, just like if it's up to the Canadian people to vote on these sorts of things, it will always go in the favor of more enforcement and more closed border policies. People do not want an open border. And I think the lack of statement from Joe Biden so far is affirming that. Even Kamala Harris has barely said anything, and they shipped or bust the illegal immigrants to her house, and her team hasn't commented on this either because they know it's a losing issue for them.
And it may look, Brian, I'm going to give you the last word on this. It may look cruel that they're using these poor immigrants as illegal immigrants as pawns, but they make it clear they don't want to necessarily stay in the states where they hop the fence or get through. They want to go to New York. They want to go to other cities. They don't want to necessarily stay in, say, Texas, for example, or Florida for that matter. But this isn't going to be the end of it. Those buses are going to continue to roll, and there are going to be more and more people that land in these big cities. New York, for example, and like Jamil just said, they went to DC on Vice President Harris's doorstep for the most part. So it may sound crass, it may be political move, but it is driving that point home. Every state could likely be a border town now.
It as we said at the outset, it puts the issue in the hands of those who help create the problem. And I have to laugh at the audacity in Chicago. Well, this is horrible. Please don't do this. But we'll send them out to Palatine and Schaumburg and Elgin and all the areas around there, and that's just fine. No. You can't denounce something while doing it at the same time, which is what they seem to want to do. This is going to continue to be an issue, as you said, through the midterms. You do need to set parameters. You do need to send a signal, because if the border is not open, because if not, you want to talk about cruelty? How about putting people at the mercy of the human traffickers, the snakeheads, the coyotes that patrol those routes and prey upon vulnerable people? Listen to those stories. Those are heartbreaking, and those happen all too often by people, organized criminals, working the routes that these people are coming and promising them all kinds of stuff, taking their money, leaving them vulnerable. If you really care about it, that's why you stop the border. It's not for political moves to go against Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis.
And those buses are going to keep on rolling. Log on to Facebook and Twitter and go to the TorontoSun.com, hit that subscribe button for stories like this and more coverage that you won't find anywhere else.